Imagine holding a living direwolf puppy in your hands. That sounds like fantasy, right? Well, it's now become reality, thanks to genetic engineering. So guess what? Scientists just brought back the direwolf. Yes, the actual creature. This is not something they're close to doing, they've actually done it. Colossal Biosciences, a Dallas-based biotech company, announced that they've successfully used ancient DNA to create 3 direwolf puppies. CEO Ben Lamb said, "Our team took DNA from a 13,000-year-old tooth and a 72,000-year-old skull and made healthy direwolf puppies." He also added, "It was once said any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. Well, today our team gets to unveil some of the magic they are working on." So 2 of the pups are named Romulus and Remus. The third was named Khaleesi, of course a nod to Game of Thrones, which features direwolves. In fact, George R. R. Martin, the author of Game of Thrones, actually got to hold one of these pups. How nuts would that be? You write a fantasy novel with these long extinct creatures in them, and then decades later you actually get to hold a real living one. I don't think any goal I can imagine is ever going to live up to that. So these pups aren't clones. They're actually genetically engineered to be as close to direwolves as science can get. They were born from surrogate dogs and raised with bottle feedings, so they're friendly for now, but they're already starting to act more like true wolves. Thankfully, they live on a massive 2,000-acre preserve with cameras, drones, and guards keeping an eye on them. The Bucardo, or Pyrenean ibex if you're feeling fancy, was a wild mountain goat that went extinct in 2000 when the last known female, named Celia, was found squished under a fallen tree in Spain. Brutal way to go, honestly, but science wasn't ready to let her go just yet. In 2003, researchers went Jurassic Park on the situation and they took frozen skin samples from Celia, using them to create a clone. And it worked, sort of. A domestic goat was used as the surrogate mom, and against all odds, a cloned baby ibex was born. It was the first time an extinct animal had been brought back to life. The victory party didn't last long though. The clone only lived for about 7 minutes. It had a severe lung defect and couldn't breathe properly, so technically the Pyrenean ibex became the first animal to go extinct twice. Kind of amazing and kind of heartbreaking. Even though the success was short-lived though, it proved that de-extinction wasn't just science fiction anymore. It was messy and complicated, sure, but it was real, and a real possibility to do better. And in those 7 minutes, the seemingly impossible actually happened. So pronounce something like Przewalski. Przewalski's horse is a prehistoric-looking beast that once roamed the steppes of Central Asia. These stocky horses are the last truly wild horse species on Earth. Not wild as in used to be tame and then went rogue, wild as in never domesticated. But things didn't go well for them once humans showed up with fences and firearms. By the late 60s, these horses were completely extinct in the wild. The only ones left were in zoos, but in 2020, scientists stepped in. Using 40-year-old frozen cells from a stallion named Kaporovic, they created a clone, and boom, you had a healthy baby Przewalski's horse, now born in a Texas facility, who they named Kurt. Kurt's genes came from a bloodline that hadn't been part of the breeding pool in decades, so he brought much needed diversity to a population that was getting a little too inbred. And thanks to years of conservation work, these wild horses are back in their native Mongolia, running free once again. The quagga was a strange-looking animal, a zebra subspecies with stripes in the front half of its body and then just a plain brown rear end. It once lived in the grasslands of South Africa, roaming around in large herds, but like a bunch of species, it didn't survive European colonization. Settlers hunted it for meat and hides, and by the 1880s, it was declared extinct. The last known quagga died in captivity in Amsterdam in 1883. For a long time, scientists didn't even realize the quagga was a distinct subspecies. That changed in the 1980s though, when a German natural historian named Reinhold Rau launched the Quagga Project. Using preserved skins and taxidermy specimens, Rau conducted genetic testing and confirmed that the quagga was genetically close enough to plain zebras that selective breeding might be able to bring them back, at least in appearance. The idea was to breed plain zebras that naturally showed fewer stripes, generation after generation, until the animals started to resemble the extinct quagga. Over the decades, the project produced zebras with lighter coats, reduced striping, and even that same body shape described in old quagga records. The animals born from this project are now called raw quaggas. And sure, they aren't true quaggas in the genetic sense, but they're close. Some have even been reintroduced into the environment in South Africa, living in the same type of environment their ancestors did. The Lord Howe Island stick insect was once believed to be extinct, wiped out by invasive rats and other pests. The insect, also known as the tree lobster for its very weird lobster-looking appearance, lived on Lord Howe Island in the Pacific Ocean. By the 1920s, the insect had completely disappeared though, or so everyone thought. For decades, it was assumed that the rats had done them in. But then in 2001, there was this incredible discovery. Researchers came across a population of these thought to be extinct insects surviving on Ball's Pyramid, a jagged, steep rock formation off the coast of Lord Howe Island. The fact that these things managed to hang on in such a harsh, isolated environment was mind-blowing, as well as the fact that they were even there at all. So now, scientists have been working hard to breed them in captivity and reintroduce them to their original island home, and they're slowly making a comeback. And at number 5 now, we have woolly mammoths. Everyone has heard of the woolly mammoth, a long extinct animal that some scientists have expressed real interest in trying to bring back through genetic engineering. Mammoths were these massive, hairy relatives of modern elephants. They lived during the last ice age, thousands of years ago, stomping around in places like Europe, Asia, and North America. They adapted to cold climates, with their long, shaggy hair protecting them from the freezing temperatures. Scientists haven't only dug up mammoth bones, but relatively well-preserved carcasses in the frozen tundra of Siberia. The plan is to take the mammoth DNA and insert it into the cells of modern elephants, their closest living relatives. Question is, why do this? And I guess that's the question for everything on this list. Well, some scientists think that bringing back mammoths might help combat climate change, actually. Mammoths stomped around munching on plants, preventing forests from taking over grasslands. So the thought is, if we reintroduce mammoths, they might help keep the Arctic tundra in check, slowing down the thawing of permafrost and basically curbing global warming. Number 4, the Pyrenean ibex. This was a subspecies of the Iberian ibex, inhabiting the mountainous regions of the Pyrenees between Spain and France. In 1999, the last known Pyrenean ibex female named Celia was tagged and collared. A tissue sample was taken from her for future cloning experiments, but in 2000, Celia herself was found dead, crushed by a fallen tree. In 2003, scientists attempted to bring back the Pyrenean ibex from extinction using cloning technology. This involved transferring the nucleus of Celia's skin cell into the egg cell of a domestic goat. The modified egg was then implanted into the uterus of a surrogate mother goat. Multiple goats were impregnated, but only one pregnancy came to term. The clone was successfully born, making it like history as the first cloned extinct animal, but had a number of health issues. It suffered from a lung defect and survived for just 7 minutes after birth. Obviously, didn't go how they wanted it to, but this was still a big scientific leap. The experiment's outcomes led to extensive discussions in the scientific community on the ethics, really, and practicality of cloning endangered or extinct species. Next up on the list are passenger pigeons. These were once one of the most abundant bird species in North America, but after all the hunting and habitat loss, the species became extinct by the early 20th century. There are currently efforts to revive the passenger pigeon, though, led by the nonprofit organization Revive and Restore. Revive and Restore are studying the DNA of the passenger pigeon and its closest living relative, the band-tailed pigeon, by identifying specific mutations in the DNA that cause the differences between the two species. Their aim is to basically modify the DNA of the band-tailed pigeon to have traits more similar to the passenger pigeon. The resultant hybrid wouldn't be an exact copy of the original passenger pigeon, but it would be virtually indistinguishable in terms of its appearance and its behavior. Captive breeding of these hybrid pigeons is actually planned to commence in 2024, and then larger numbers of the hybrids are scheduled to be released into the wild by 2030. If this turns out to be successful, it'd be pretty groundbreaking in the realm of de-extinction efforts. We could see the same thing happening with other extinct or endangered animals, possibly ones on this very list. And at number 2, we have the dodo, the laughingstock of the natural pecking order. Like, no animal in existence, I don't think, gets dogged on as much
as this poor animal, and they're not even around to defend themselves anymore, at least for now. The dodo was a large flightless bird, stood about 3 feet tall, had a plump body and a hooked beak. Because of its inability to fly and its lack of natural predators on the island, the dodo evolved without strong defenses, and dodos were discovered by Portuguese sailors in the late 16th century. Humans, along with the introduction of animals like pigs, rats, monkeys, led to the end of the dodo. The last confirmed sighting of one was in 1662. By the end of the 17th century, they were extinct. Extracting usable... Now, dodo DNA samples are scarce and heavily degraded. Extracting usable genetic material is a bit difficult. The potential is there, though. Maybe one day this silly bird will make a comeback. But finally, at number 1, we have Neanderthals. Yeah. That's right. How wild would this be? Having other species of human existing alongside us, a species where we were thought to have killed off, brought back to, like, I don't know, right the wrong, I guess. I think this would be a complete disaster. We can't even get along with each other, let alone an entirely separate species of human. The idea of Neanderthals being brought back is very far-fetched in terms of us having any real desire to do it. It would, however, be entirely possible. Neanderthal DNA exists in modern-day human beings, particularly Europeans, because Neanderthals and modern humans coexisted in what is now Europe, not just warring with each other, but also interbreeding from time to time. So attempting to bring Neanderthals back would mean human beings would be the surrogates, which would also be very strange.
The woolly mammoth, a massive shaggy-haired elephant relative, disappeared about 4,000 years ago, but scientists are working to bring it back. One biotech company called Colossal Biosciences is actually trying to do this, using gene editing technology to insert mammoth traits into the DNA of Asian elephants, the mammoth's closest living relatives. The goal is to create a hybrid that looks and behaves like a mammoth, with thick fur, a layer of fat for insulation, and the ability to survive in freezing temperatures. But why put all this time and effort into something like this? I mean, sure, it would be cool to see a real-life mammoth in person, but is there any other purpose behind research like this aside from the novelty? Well, in this case, yes, it's also an attempt to combat climate change. Back in the day, mammoths actually helped maintain Arctic permafrost by compacting the snow, which kept the ground cold. So scientists think reintroducing mammoth-like elephants to the Siberian tundra, for example, could help slow permafrost thawing. But it's one thing breeding a mammoth in a lab. Creating a healthy, self-sustaining population of mammoths is another challenge entirely, and even if the science works, there are ethical things to consider here. Should we be bringing back an animal that no longer has a natural place in the world? And what about the elephants being modified in the process? Can't be fun for them. Still though, Colossal Biosciences claims they're making steady progress, aiming to have the first mammoth calves born within the next few years, and if that happens, it could be the start of something groundbreaking. The dodo is one of the most famous extinct animals in history. This chubby, flightless, silly bird lived on the island of Mauritius until humans and the rats, dogs, and pigs they brought with them wiped them out by the late 1600s. The dodo is often used as a symbol of extinction, but scientists are hoping to change that by bringing it back to life. Once again, Colossal Biosciences, along with researchers from the University of California, Santa Cruz, has fully sequenced the dodo genome. Now they're working on editing the DNA of the Nicobar pigeon, the closest living relative to the dodo, to recreate a dodo-like bird. The goal here is to use the dodo as kind of a test case for de-extinction, studying how reintroducing a lost species will affect the natural ecosystems. That said, reintroducing the dodo wouldn't be easy. Mauritius has changed drastically since the dodo went extinct, and they're not sure whether a newly created dodo would have a place in today's environment, but no better way to find out than to try. Now we're getting into the really controversial territory. Unlike the woolly mammoth or dodo, Neanderthals weren't just animals, they were another species of human. They lived alongside our ancestors, interbred with them, and disappeared about 40,000 years ago. Some scientists think that if we really wanted to, we could bring them back, but should we? Harvard geneticist George Church has said that in theory we could clone a Neanderthal by editing modern human DNA to match a Neanderthal's genetics. Of course, that would require a human surrogate mother to carry and give birth to a Neanderthal baby, and I think the list of women signing up for that would be slim. Pregnancy is a nightmare already, from what I've heard, but at least the light at the end of the tunnel is that you'll have this adorable little baby to love when it's all over, hopefully. A little Neanderthal creature, though, probably is not the gold at the end of the rainbow most parents are hoping for. And there's also the question of what kind of life a Neanderthal would have. Would they be treated as a person, a science experiment, a sideshow attraction? Even ignoring the ethical issues here, there are practical concerns. Neanderthals adapted to a more Ice Age environment, and their brains worked differently from ours. Could they even function in today's world? Would they want to? While the idea of resurrecting a lost branch of humanity is definitely fascinating, it's also one of the most morally complicated things science could ever attempt. The Tasmanian tiger, or thylacine, was a strange marsupial predator native to Australia and Tasmania. It looked like a dog with stripes, had a pouch kind of like a kangaroo, and it could open its jaws wider than any modern mammal. The last known thylacine died in captivity in 1936, but there are rumors there may still be a small group of them roaming around. Now scientists want to bring it back for real. Our friends over at Colossal Biosciences and the University of Melbourne are using CRISPR gene editing to modify the DNA of the numbat, which kind of looks like a squirrel-sized version of the Tasmanian tiger. The idea is to reintroduce thylacine traits into numbats, eventually creating an animal nearly identical to the extinct predator. If they succeed, they plan to release them into Tasmania to restore ecological balance. Since the thylacine was an apex predator, it being gone may have disrupted the natural order of things. But even if they managed to create a thylacine-like creature, would it actually behave like one? No one really knows. There's also the question of whether these animals could survive in modern Australia, where their old habitat has changed quite a bit. And again, it's an exciting idea, but a gamble, and one that may take decades to pull off. The Irish elk was one of the largest deer species ever, with males sporting antlers up to 12 feet across. Now, these weren't actually exclusive to Ireland. The Irish elk roamed across Europe and Asia before going extinct around 7,000 years ago. Scientists think there were a couple of factors here: climate change and human hunting, pretty typical stuff. But because the Irish elk is closely related to modern deer species like the fallow deer, scientists think they may be able to use selective breeding and genetic engineering to recreate it. Since deer still thrive in many parts of the world, reintroducing the Irish elk might not be as far-fetched as bringing back something like the dodo or the mammoth. But again, just because we could doesn't necessarily mean we should. A deer with 12-foot antlers sounds cool until you realize it might not even fit in modern forests or even be able to survive in today's climate. And let's be honest, if these things started wandering onto highways, that would be a disaster waiting to happen. Still, if scientists pull it off, seeing these ancient giants roam again would be pretty incredible.
In our number 5 spot today, we have the megalodon. Okay, my favorite, your favorite, everyone's favorite. Is any terrifying prehistoric sea creatures list truly complete without an appearance from the Meg? Megalodons are one of the largest sharks to have ever existed. They were huge, they were terrifying, they were apex predators, and they are the creatures that inspired the tales of Jaws, or the Meg. The teeth on these sharks are so large that they are 3 times larger than the teeth of a modern great white shark. With teeth that size, you can only imagine how large this shark would have been. It's pretty tough to figure out exactly why the megalodon died out. I mean, they were one of the largest, scariest creatures who shouldn't have had any trouble getting food, but that might not be the case. Some believe it was the cooling waters, others believe it was the competition for food. Whatever the case in the end, while the megalodon is an incredible creature in history, I think we can all breathe a sigh of relief that they aren't currently swimming around our oceans. Or are they? In our number 4 spot today, we have the Opabinia regalis. Opabinia regalis is an extinct animal that lived around 505 million years ago during the Cambrian period. It was a small, bizarre-looking creature with a long, segmented body that measured up to about 7 centimeters in length. Pretty tiny compared to the other giants on this list. Opabinia had 5 eyes and a nozzle-like proboscis at the front of its body, which is likely used to grab prey from the sea floor. Opabinia is an important animal animal in the study of early life on Earth because it belongs to a group of animals known as arthropods. Arthropods are a diverse group of animals that includes things like insects, spiders, and crustaceans. Opabinia is unique among arthropods because of its unusual body plan and its feeding habits. They likely fed on small invertebrates and other small animals on the sea floor. Its proboscis may have been used to probe the sediment for prey, and its 5 eyes likely helped it to locate prey in low light conditions. These guys are known from fossil remains found in the Burgess Shale Formation in British Columbia, right here in Canada. The Burgess Shale is a world famous fossil site that has yielded many important discoveries in the study of early life on Earth. Opabinia is just one of the many fascinating and bizarre creatures that lived during the Cambrian period. In our number 3 spot today, we have the Helicoprion. This animal existed somewhere around 250 million years ago, and while it looks more like a shark than anything else, scientists now know that it was actually a creature that is related more closely to chimeras, which are a fish that separated from the shark family about 400 million years ago. So why is this animal just so scary and terrible to look at? Well, that is due to the incredibly unsettling spiral saw formation of teeth that this creature had right on their lower jaw. Yeah, an orthodontist's dream, truly. It's also not like this creature was just born with this teeth that they had for the rest of their lives. No, of course not. They had teeth that could grow, and new teeth could even form. Imagine being in the ocean and you see a huge creature swim up to you that has 4 spiral saws for teeth. Yeah. No thanks. Never going swimming. In our number 2 spot today, we have Cephalaspis. Cephalaspis is an extinct fish that lived around 400 to 360 million years ago during the Devonian period. It has a flattened, armored head and a small, streamlined body that measured up to about 60 centimeters in length. These guys likely lived in freshwater environments and fed on small invertebrates and plankton. These guys had a bony plate on the top of their head that protected their brain and their sensory organs. This plate, known as a cephalic shield, was shaped like a triangle and had 2 large openings for the eyes. These guys also had a pair of small paddle-shaped fins near the front of their body that they used for swimming. These guys are an important animal in the study of early fish evolution because it is one of the earliest known jawless fish. Jawless fish include modern-day lampreys and hagfish. They lack the jaws and paired fins that are found in most modern fish. These guys are known from their fossil remains that have been found in many parts of the world, including Europe, North America, and Asia. The discovery of these guys have helped scientists to better understand the early evolution of fish and the diversification of life during the Devonian period. And finally, in our number 1 spot today, we have Anomalocaris. These guys are an extinct animal that lived around 500 million years ago during the Cambrian period, and they were a large predatory animal that measured up to a meter in length. These guys had a circular mouth surrounded by spiny plates, which it likely used to grasp and crush its prey. These guys are an important animal in the study of early life because they are one of the earliest known arthropods. These guys are unique among arthropods, however, because they have a very unusual body plan and also unusual feeding habits. They had a segmented body and a pair of large paddle-shaped appendages at the front that helped it swim through the oceans. Its circular mouth was lined with sharp teeth, and its spiny plates may have been used to grasp and manipulate their prey. These guys are known from fossil remains found in many parts of the world, including Canada, China, and Australia. They're kind of all over the place. The discovery of these guys has helped scientists to better understand the early evolution of arthropods and just, what was going on during the Cambrian period.
And we're kicking off the list with a big one, the king of the dinosaurs, the Tyrannosaurus rex. This was a formidable dinosaur that lived approximately 68 to 66 million years ago during the late Cretaceous period. Known for its massive size, sharp teeth, and powerful hind limbs, the T-Rex was one of the largest land predators in Earth's history. The T-Rex could grow up to 40 feet in length and stood about 15 feet tall, with a large skull filled with serrated teeth, capable of crushing bones. It was a carnivorous predator, preying on other dinosaurs and potentially scavenging for food as well. T-Rex likely had excellent vision and sense of smell, making it a skilled hunter. The general consensus amongst scientists is that resurrecting dinosaurs is highly improbable due to the ancient age of their fossils, making the recovery of viable genetic material nearly impossible. Despite these challenges, though, the Adam Smith Institute is attempting to resurrect dinosaurs, including the T-Rex, by backbreeding flightless birds. Modern birds are considered descendants of dinosaurs, and the Institute aims to isolate their DNA and incorporate gene technology to recreate dinosaur traits. The Institute's vision goes beyond just resurrecting the T-Rex. They plan to extend this technology to revive more dinosaur species, expanding the controversial boundaries of de-extinction efforts. Number 9, the Velociraptor. Velociraptors were about 6 feet long, standing around 2 feet tall. They had a slender body, sharp claws on their hands, and of course that distinctive sickle-shaped claw on each foot. They were incredibly predatory. I'm going to start off with a quote by Madsen Peary, the president of the aforementioned Adam Smith Institute. Several species of dinosaur will be recreated, making their appearance on Earth for the first time in 66 million years. It will not be done a la Jurassic Park, with their DNA extracted from blood-sucking insects preserved in amber. It was always highly dubious that enough of the DNA molecule would survive in this way. Instead, dinosaurs will be recreated by backbreeding from flightless birds. Birds are modern-day dinosaurs, but they no longer look like dinosaurs. Deep within their DNA, however, will be information relating to the time when they did. And a combination of selective breeding and gene technology will be used to give them the characteristic features of dinosaurs. The jaws with teeth, the tail, the small forelimbs. Anyway, I can't imagine dinosaurs like T-Rexes and velociraptors being brought back and then released into the wild, because that would be a disaster and entirely pointless. This would definitely be a situation where they would be created purely for the spectacle of it, but that would be pretty ethically questionable as well. But now that we've established what these dinosaurs would be used for, basically being caged up for us to gawk at in weird amusement parks, let's move on to the next terrifying species on the list. Next up on the list is the Ankylosaurus. Ankylosaurus was a dinosaur that roamed the Earth around 68 to 66 million years ago. It was a herbivore, but it was coated in this crazy armor. It was about the length of a car, covered in thick, bony plates all over its body. It also had a tail that ended in a heavy club type thing, like solid bone. Very powerful weapon. If a predator like Tyrannosaurus rex came too close, Ankylosaurus could swing its tail, delivering a bone-crushing blow. These were like tanks of their time. It wasn't the kind of dinosaur you'd want to mess with if you were another dinosaur. As for the idea of bringing them back, in theory, it's a possibility with advancements in genetic engineering. Scientists have explored the concept of de-extinction. This would mean extracting and manipulating ancient DNA, filling in the gaps with DNA from related modern species, and then finding a suitable surrogate for gestation. But again, all that DNA is really old, so it would probably mean something similar to the whole flightless bird thing, but I'm not a scientist and I don't know how the hell they're even going to go about that. But number 7, Gigantosaurus. Gigantosaurus was a massive theropod dinosaur that lived around 98 million years ago. Gigantosaurus earned its name, which means giant southern lizard, because of its formidable size and strength. In terms of sheer size, Gigantosaurus was one of the largest theropod dinosaurs, rivaling even Tyrannosaurus rex. It could reach lengths of up to 40 feet or more, making it a top predator in its ecosystem. It had these really sharp teeth, some measuring over 6 inches long, which were designed for, of course, tearing through flesh. It had incredible hunting abilities. It was an apex predator. Its large size, combined with its powerful jaws and sharp teeth, allowed it to take down even the largest dinosaurs of its time. In at number 6, we have iguanodons. These were actually herbivores, so not as dangerous as some of the stuff on this list, but they were still very formidable creatures, and I think it wouldn't take kindly to humans walking up to them if they were walking around nowadays for some reason. These lived during the early Cretaceous period. It was a large dinosaur, reaching lengths of up to 33 feet and weighing several tons. They're known for that unique thumb spike, which would have been pretty useful for defending against predators. They also had a toothless beak at the front of their mouth, used for cropping vegetation. It could walk on both its hind legs and front limbs. This allowed it to browse for vegetation efficiently. It likely fed on a variety of plants, ferns, conifers, and other vegetation that was abundant during the time. The iguanodons were also one of the first dinosaurs to be scientifically described. Its fossils were discovered in the early 19th century and played a big role in shaping our understanding of dinosaurs during that time. Alright, iguanodons are cool, but not quite as terrifying as a lot of what's on this list. So let's get back to the bad boys, shall we?
Coming in at number 5 is the Haast's eagle. I know we still have other species of eagles around, but this one really takes the cake. Now, these eagles became extinct after 1400 and were mostly found in the South Island of New Zealand. In Maori folklore, the Haast's eagle was accepted and looked at as this monstrous bird. It was the largest eagle to ever grace the earth, and they were even larger than the largest living vultures. They grew large because their prey, the flightless moa, was massive and could grow up to 510 pounds, so I mean, you need to be big yourself if you're gonna eat and kill something of that size, let's be real. Size wise, they were about 22 to 33 pounds with wingspans of 8 to 10 feet, and that doesn't seem that big because I mean, it wasn't. However, it lent to it being fast as hell, and they would attack at speeds of up to 80 kilometers an hour. Now, the force of its attack would be the equivalent of a concrete block falling from an 8-story building. Specific, I know, but I mean, it would literally pierce the out of its prey, and it's even said that it used to pick up Maori babies and kill them. This bird is out here abducting babies. No remorse whatsoever, stone cold killer. You can't have that around the kids. It's gonna swoop me away in a second. At number 4 is the short-faced bear. Now, I've never actually seen a regular bear that's not extinct, but from what I've heard from everyone at the office, they're absolutely lethal, which I never would have thought before because the bears are usually very cute and cuddly, but no, these mofos will run after you and kill you, damn it. So with that in mind, the short-faced bear existed up until 11,000 years ago, so I mean, it's the most recently extinct one on the list, you could say. They were found mostly in North America, California specifically, and their faces aren't actually shorter, they just have deeper snouts and shorter nasal regions than other species. But that made their bite force more lethal than any normal bear, including grizzlies. Either way, these short-faced bears were humongous. The largest one ever weighed 2,110 pounds. Like, what? What? An average one would be 8 to 10 feet standing up, but the larger ones would be 12 feet standing and could run at speeds of 40 miles per hour. Like, these bears are no damn joke. Diet-wise, they were omnivores. They would eat basically depending on availability, but they needed 35 pounds of meat a day, so if they existed right now, we'd be like a free walking stir fry for them. Just pick whichever one you want, eat it up, chase after it. Doesn't matter. There's 7 other billion of us. Eat us up. It's fine. We can take the hit. We're overpopulating anyway. Filling our number 3 slot is the Smilodon, more commonly known as the saber-toothed cat. Now, they were around up until 10,000 years ago, so they've now taken over the bears as the most recent animal on this list, and they overlapped with early humans. They were found mostly in the Americas, and they were more robustly built than any other feline. They had incredibly developed forelimbs and long-ass upper canine teeth, and the longest recorded being 11 inches. The bigger ones were about 500 to 900 pounds, and the smaller ones were about 350 to 650 pounds. The saber-toothed cat was a hyper carnivore, so I don't even have to tell you what that means, and on top of that, they hunted in packs. So let's just say if they existed, we definitely would not. Okay. Now at number 2 is the mega piranha. Come on you guys, piranhas are a real threat. And a mega piranha? Say less, my friend, say less. Now they were around about 8 to 10 million years ago and swam around the region of present day Argentina. They were bigger than the piranhas we have now. They were about 28 inches long and weighed 20 to 30 pounds. The ones we have now weigh about 2 pounds, so you can imagine the difference. They're just babies. They're just not mega, let's be real, they're beta at best. Either way, they ate things like crocodiles, snakes, and fish. Like, can you imagine this little fish eating a crocodile, which back then would have been huge as well? The mega piranha could exert a force that was up to 50 times its own weight, meaning it could crush a car in its mouth if we were to experiment. And honey, if it's crushing a car, it's crushing your skull. End of story. And finally, at number 1 is the megalodon. I feel like there was absolutely no doubt or contest about what number 1 was gonna be. The Meg, you guys. The Meg. Meg. Dun-dun. Dun-dun. I hope you liked my performance. That is what a current day megalodon would act like and be like. Now, none of the animals on this list would win against the megalodon, and they're all already apex predators in their own right. The meg was around 23 to 3.6 million years ago, and to simplify, it is the biggest shark you could possibly think of. They reached up to 60 feet long at the largest, but even the small ones were still 35 feet long. Their bite alone could exert 11,216 to 18,500 kilograms of force. Their teeth would straight up just break your bones. For comparison, great whites attack from the soft underside of their prey's bellies, whereas the meg would just break through the chest cavity and puncture the lung, like we're just going straight for the jugular. The bigger ones would eat things like whales, seals, and sea turtles, whereas the little ones would eat smaller whales. I already have such a massive phobia of sharks. You guys know this if you've been watching for a while. I barely go into any body of water already, but if scientists brought back megalodons, I would never step into the ocean again. I don't even give a damn. Even if they were only found like 1,000 miles away from me, I would still not step into the ocean. Like, if those things came back, that would be the start of the end of marine life. Like, it's over for us all at that point. Sea travel, not a thing anymore. Cruises, bye bye. Scuba diving, sayonara. Me? Gone. Somewhere in the ether. We're not here anymore.
And we're kicking off the list with aurochs. In the ancient days, there was a huge cattle species called the aurochs. They roamed around Eurasia to North Africa, but as humans came into the picture, they started disappearing. By Roman times, only the European aurochs were left, and they eventually bit the dust in 1627, gone forever. Then came the 1930s, and a couple of folks named Heinz and Lutz Heck thought they could play Mother Nature and possibly bring the aurochs back. They ended up getting something close-ish called Heck cattle. Jump to today though, there are a few groups, the Tauros program, the Taurus project, and the Urus project, all trying to revive the aurochs. The first two are using selective breeding, but the Urus project, on the other hand, is going high-tech, using gene editing in the hopes of resurrecting the species. And at number 9 on our list is the quagga. The quagga were a subspecies of zebra in the southern tip of Africa. They were hunted to extinction, finally dying out in 1883. Now, let's jump to 1980. Some clever minds set out to bring the species back. Scientists delved into the DNA, and this was when it was first discovered that the quagga were actually a subspecies of the plains. That was the green light they needed, and in 1987 they launched the Quagga project in South Africa. They chose 9 zebras, ones that shared traits with the quagga, and it brought them to a special breeding camp. They didn't stop there. More zebras were selected, each for their quagga-like qualities, and brought into the program. As the years passed, many baby zebras were born, and something amazing happened. They got results. 6 of these zebras turned out to be incredibly close to the original quagga. They weren't quite there yet, but they were similar, and they earned their own special title, Rao quaggas. Next up, we have the thylacine, aka the Tasmanian tiger. Now, this critter was like a mix of a wolf and a kangaroo with like a striped pattern going on. They look really cool. They were native to Tasmania, an island state of Australia, and they were the largest known carnivorous marsupials of modern times. Sadly though, humans weren't too friendly to them, and they went extinct in the 20th century. Fast forward to 2017, and scientists were trying to make up for humanity's mistakes. They managed to pull off something pretty amazing. They decoded the full nuclear genome of the thylacine. Andrew J. Pask from the University of Melbourne said the next move would be to create a fully functioning thylacine genome. It's going to take some serious time and research, but scientists are saying they might be able to pull it off and bring the thylacine back from the dead by 2027. It really helps with the species that they were around not too long ago. I think the last one died in like, I don't know, 1930 something, if I'm correct. Number 7 though, we have the woolly rhinoceros. As you could probably imagine, the woolly rhinoceros resembled modern rhinoceroses, but with fur. These were primarily found in the Mammoth steppe, a cold and dry grassland ecosystem stretched across northern Eurasia and North America during the Ice Age. It became extinct around 10,000 years ago. As the Earth warmed at the ends of the last Ice Age, the Mammoth steppe began to disappear, leading to a decline in the rhinoceros's food sources. Early humans also hunted these animals for their meat, their bones, and their hides. In recent years, advances in genetic engineering and cloning technologies have led to the possibility of bringing the woolly rhinoceros back. Scientists have been exploring the idea of using genetic material from preserved specimens to recreate them. One potential method for bringing back the woolly rhinoceros involves extracting DNA from well-preserved specimens, like a carcass found in permafrost, for example. Scientists could then sequence the genome of the woolly rhinoceros and compare it to the genomes of its closest living relatives, of course your standard rhinoceros, and to then identify the specific genetic differences and go from there. Next on the list we have moas. Moas were large flightless birds native to New Zealand. They belonged to the ratite group, which includes modern birds like ostriches and emus, kiwis. Some stood as tall as 12 feet, making them the largest birds on Earth at the time. But the arrival of humans in New Zealand marked the beginning of the end for these creatures. Due to the moa's lack of any natural predators, they were very easy prey. The population dwindled rapidly, and by the end of the 15th century, moas had vanished from New Zealand. And fast forward to modern times, thanks to advanced DNA extraction techniques, scientists have managed to obtain genetic material from moa remains, particularly ancient eggshells. And this allows scientists to study the moa genome and potentially resurrect them. Some scientists have contemplated the possibility of resurrecting these birds through a process called de-extinction. This involves using the preserved DNA to modify the genetic material of closely related birds, like in this case an emu and an ostrich, and create a creature that genetically at least would resemble the long-lost creature.
The Restrador Brasileiro is a hunting dog that was bred in the 1950s to chase down jaguars and wild pigs in Brazil's thick forests. But by 1973, the poor dogs got hit with tick-borne diseases and a bunch of insecticide poisoning to try and get rid of the pests. Well, this was enough to wipe them out, and they were officially declared extinct. In the early 2000s, though, a group of dog lovers and breeders formed a group called the Brazilian Tracker Rescue Support Group. They set out to find any surviving dogs that had the original breed's traits in them. They spent years tracking down these dogs, selectively breeding them, and by 2013 they'd successfully brought the breed back from extinction. The Floriana giant tortoise lived on Floriana Island in the Galapagos. As the name suggests, these were huge tortoises, about 4.5 feet long. Sadly, by the 1800s, they were wiped out, mostly thanks to overhunting by sailors and the introduction of invasive species. And for over a century, everyone thought they were totally gone. But in 2012, scientists discovered that there might be some hope after all. They found a female tortoise on another island, Espanola, that had DNA showing she was related to the Floriana tortoises. This tortoise was nicknamed Lonesome George's cousin, and scientists went to work on a plan. They started breeding her with tortoises that were genetically close enough, and thanks to years of careful breeding, they managed to create a population of tortoises that closely resembled the extinct Floriana giant tortoises. It wasn't a perfect clone job, but was close enough to bring these species back in a new form. So while we don't have the extinct Floriana giant tortoise wandering around exactly, it's still better than nothing. Okay, now here's one you probably haven't heard of, the Montreal melon. So this is a type of melon that was native to Montreal, obviously, and used to grow in the area back in the 1800s. The melon had a very unique flavor. It's been described as having a slight spice to it, almost like nutmeg, and apparently it would just melt in your mouth when eating it. No surprise, it was a local favorite. But this melon pretty much disappeared in the early 1900s. No one really knows exactly why. Maybe it was due to disease or just the changing farming practices at the time, but whatever the case, the Montreal melon was gone. For over a century, it was nothing but a legend. But in 1996, seeds were discovered at a seed bank in, try and guess where, I'll give you a second. That's right, Iowa. Well, soon enough, the Montreal melon was back on local menus. The York groundsel was a little yellow flower that was hanging on in some pretty unusual places in York, England. It was a cross between two other plants and would grow in strange areas like railway sidings and roadways. But like many things in the world of nature, it didn't stand a chance once the city decided to crack down on weeds. By 1991, the flower was officially declared extinct in the wild. But just because it was gone doesn't mean people gave up on it. Turns out, there were seeds stored in the Millennium Seed Bank, a place where scientists keep seeds from all sorts of plants for situations just like this. In 2023, experts from Natural England decided to give the flower a second shot at life, using those stored seeds they managed to grow the York groundsel back to life, making this the first ever successful de-extinction in Britain. Now the plants are being reintroduced, and it's a major win for conservation, proving that with a little help from science, you can sometimes bring back what was thought to be lost forever. So sure, it's not an animal, but still a living thing, and that's pretty cool. The coelacanth is probably one of the most famous rediscovered animals in the world. For centuries, scientists thought that the coelacanth was long extinct, way back since the end of the Cretaceous period, around 66 million years ago. But in 1938, something that could only be described as mind-blowing happened. A fisherman off the coast of South Africa caught this unusual fish, and after scientists carefully examined it, they were amazed to find that this was a coelacanth. A fish that was supposed to have been gone for millions of years was still out there swimming in the ocean, and since then, scientists have tracked down several other coelacanths in the waters around Africa and Indonesia, proving that this ancient creature somehow survived the mass extinctions. So yeah, this one isn't technically de-extinct, just rediscovered. Still though, does make you wonder what other seemingly extinct animals may actually still be out there.
Starting off this list in our number 10 spot, we have Xiphactinus. Xiphactinus was a prehistoric fish that lived during the late Cretaceous period around 85 million years ago. It was a predatory fish that could grow up to 20 feet in length and weighed up to 1,500 pounds, making it one of the largest bony fish of all time. This fish had a long, streamlined body with powerful jaws and sharp teeth that allowed it to hunt and devour smaller fish and marine reptiles. It had a unique adaptation in its skeleton with a hinged lower jaw that could open very wide, allowing it to swallow prey whole. How terrifying is that? Fossils of this fish have been found in North America, particularly in what is now Kansas and Alabama, as well as in Europe and South America. It is believed that this fish went extinct along with the dinosaurs at the end of the Cretaceous period, around 66 million years ago. In our number 9 spot today, we have the Godzilla shark. With a name like that, this creature is surely anything but disappointing. About 300 million years ago, these guys ruled the sea and were one of the most terrifying sea creatures ever on our planet. Fossils of these guys have been found in the Mazzano Mountains, which lie east of Albuquerque, New Mexico, and they were found in 2013 by paleontologist John Paul Hodnett. So think of a massive shark, but now picture it covered in scales, like a reptile. Okay, now add 12 rows of super sharp teeth, and also the largest dorsal fin spines of any shark that has ever lived. Okay, so now you've pretty much got a Godzilla shark. It was nicknamed the Godzilla shark because of its size, as the skeleton is the largest fossil of its kind ever discovered in the area, as well as the fact that its fin spines are so intriguing to look at. While it was called the Godzilla shark upon its discovery, it has since received a more official name of Hoffman's dragon shark, both to honor the family that owned the land where the skeleton was found, and as an homage to its monstrous and reptilian appearance. In our number 8 spot today, we have the Temnodontosaurus. Temnodontosaurus is a genus of extinct marine reptile belonging to the group of ichthyosaurs. They lived during the Jurassic period, approximately 180 to 150 million years ago. These guys were a large predator that could grow up to 33 feet or 10 meters long, with a very long and streamlined body that allowed it to swim quickly through the water. These guys had a long snout filled with sharp teeth that it likely used to catch and eat fish and squid. Fossil evidence suggests that they may have also been cannibalistic, with larger individuals preying on smaller ones. Like in ichthyosaurs, these guys gave birth to live young rather than laying eggs. I mean, it's the ocean. Several species of these guys have been described, with the most well-known being T. platiodon. This species was first described in the early 19th century and is known from fossil remains found in Europe, particularly in Germany and the UK. T. platiodon was named for its flattened teeth, which were adapted for crushing the shells of its prey. Overall, these guys were a formidable predator that dominated the Jurassic seas. Its large size and sharp teeth made it a fearsome sight for any smaller creatures that happened to cross its path. In our number 7 spot today, today we have the Tylosaurus. These creatures belong to the family of mosasaurs, and they have long eel-like bodies that allowed them to smoothly cruise through the waters. They had the ability to have intense bursts of speed that propelled them to their prey, which they could quickly take down. The snout of these creatures is thought to have been quite large and robust compared to other species of mosasaurs, which has led researchers to believe that they may have used it to their advantage. To do this, they might have rammed into larger prey so that they were stunned. This gave them time to turn around and finish the prey with their large jaws. Despite these specialized skills, it seems as though these guys weren't very picky with what they ate, as they have been found with all kinds of remains found in their stomach area. These creatures were very large, but they are also way faster and more agile compared to other mosasaurs. What more could you want in a prehistoric predator? In our number 6 spot today we have Heliocostis moroccensis. These guys are an extinct animal that lived around 520 million years ago during the Cambrian period. They were a small, bizarre-looking creature with a spiral-shaped body and a mouth surrounded by tentacles. These guys are known from fossil remains found in Morocco. Scientists believe that these guys were a filter feeder, using their tentacles to capture plankton from the water. The spiral shape of its body may have helped to control its buoyancy and to help them just stay afloat in the water. Its mouth was located at the center of the spiral, and its tentacles extended outward to capture food. These guys are a very important animal in the study of early life on Earth because it belongs to a group of animals known as echinoderms. Echinoderms are a diverse group of animals that include modern-day sea stars, sea urchins, and sea cucumbers, all of the weird things sitting on the ocean floor. The discovery of these guys has helped scientists to better understand the evolution and the diversity of echinoderms.
The cave lion was one of the largest big cats to ever exist, roaming across Europe and Siberia before going extinct about 10,000 years ago. Unlike modern lions, it was bigger, fluffier, probably better suited to cold climates. Scientists have been able to recover some pretty well-preserved cave lion cubs from Siberian permafrost, and now they're considering bringing them back. Because cave lions are closely related to modern lions, researchers think cloning or selective breeding could eventually revive them. They want to reintroduce them to places like Siberia, where they might help control herbivore populations. Some argue that since cave lions once roamed these areas, they could fit right back into the ecosystem. But obviously, introducing a prehistoric predator back into the environment isn't exactly risk-free. Even if they managed to bring back cave lions, where would they live exactly? In an age where regular lions are already struggling to survive, throwing an Ice Age cat into the mix seems kinda nuts to me. Plus, imagine the headlines: genetically engineered super lion escapes, eats entire village. Maybe this would be interesting. The moa was a massive flightless bird from New Zealand, with some species standing up to 12 feet tall, which is horrifying. Unlike the dodo, which fell victim to European colonization, the moa was wiped out centuries earlier by the Maori, who hunted it to extinction by around 1400. But you guessed it, some scientists want to bring it back. Using DNA recovered from moa fossils and preserved remains, some researchers think there's a possibility they can edit the genome of the moa's closest living relative, the South Island takahe, to recreate a bird similar to the extinct one. Since New Zealand's ecosystem evolved without large land predators, the idea is that reintroducing the moa could help restore the natural balance. But there are a few problems. First, moa weren't just big, they were slow and defenseless, making them pretty easy targets for modern invasive species. Second, the forests and grasslands they used to roam have changed. We don't really know if a revived moa would have enough habitat left to survive. The quagga was a bizarre looking zebra that only had stripes on one half of its body. Almost looked like nature just ran out of ink and then we're just like, whatever, they're gonna go extinct anyway, why try? It lived in South Africa but was hunted to extinction by the late 1800s. Unlike some of the more ambitious de-extinction projects, scientists have already made progress on reviving the quagga without even using cloning. All they've done is selective breeding, finding zebras with kind of quagga-like traits and then breeding them together. And over time, they've created animals that do look very similar to the original quagga. And sure, they're not genetically identical to the old ones, but they're close enough that they could one day roam the plains of South Africa just like their ancestors. The big question is whether reviving the quagga actually serves any purpose beyond proving that it can be done. And in this case, yeah, I don't know, doesn't really seem like it. Still, of all the de-extinction efforts, this one seems the most practical and least likely to result in unexpected disaster, so there's that. The great auk was basically a northern hemisphere penguin. Couldn't fly, but it was an incredible swimmer, using its flipper-like wings to dive for fish. Unfortunately, they were easy pickings for humans who hunted them to extinction by the mid-1800s. Now scientists want to use gene editing to modify the DNA of its closest living relative, the razorbill, to recreate them. If successful, these new ones could be released onto remote islands where their ancestors once lived, bringing back an important part of the North Atlantic ecosystem. But would the modern world even have room for the great auk? Climate change, pollution, overfishing, that's dramatically altered the oceans since this bird went extinct. Even if scientists manage to recreate it, there's no guarantee it could survive today. On the other hand, if successful, it could be a major step toward using de-extinction to repair damaged ecosystems. So imagine a manatee, but bigger, way bigger. The Steller's sea cow was a massive marine mammal that could grow up to 30 feet long and weigh over 20,000 pounds. It used to live in the North Pacific, but was hunted to extinction by the late 1700s, less than 30 years after being discovered. Now, some scientists think they can bring them back. Unlike other extinct animals, the Steller sea cow does have a very close modern relative, the dugong, meaning once again, there's a possibility they could modify dugong DNA to recreate something similar to the extinct sea cow. Since sea cows once played an important part in keeping kelp forests healthy, bringing them back could also help restore marine habitats, but the modern ocean isn't exactly a safe place for giant, slow-moving herbivores. Pollution and boat traffic make it unlikely that a revived Steller sea cow would have an easy time surviving, and considering that humans wiped them out already, who's to say it wouldn't just happen again? Still, if scientists succeed, we might one day see these massive creatures gliding through the ocean once again, as well as everything else on this list. What do you think of that?
Starting us off with number 10 is the Titanoboa. Now there were so many pronunciations to this one, I was like, what do I choose? But then Charlotte over on IO said it was like that, so I'm gonna trust her. Titanoboa. I'm gonna trust her. Now I'm sure you guys have all heard about this creature. This now extinct reptile was monstrous and the largest, longest, and heaviest species of snake that ever lived. They could grow up to 50 feet long and weigh up to 2,500 pounds, which is no joke. And it wasn't even their weight or length, they were just thick, like with two C's. Like they weren't skinny snakes, they were girthy and thick. They were mostly found in present-day northeastern Colombia and date back 58 to 60 million years ago. Now they spent most of their time underwater or around the trees, and their dull coloring allowed them to be super camouflaged very, very easily. Their diet consisted of giant crocodiles, turtles, birds, and basically anything they fancied eating that day, because they could. They had rows of teeth lining their upper and lower jaws, and since they weren't venomous, they would either constrict their prey or block their windpipe. Now no one actually knows why the Titanoboa went extinct. One theory is that it was due to climate change, which I mean, great, because it's gonna happen to us as well, so we'll be right there with you. Either way, let's not bring back this enormous snake, because I'm surrounded by too many snakes already. Can't deal with any more. Mic drop. Coming in at number 9 is the Spinosaurus, also known as the spine lizard and one of the largest carnivorous dinosaurs to ever exist. It was dubbed the spine lizard because of the giant protruding spine it had that sort of looks like a fish's dorsal fin. These creatures existed about 112 to 93.5 million years ago and were found in present-day North Africa. They were bigger than the T-Rex even and could grow up to 40 to 60 feet in length and weighed nearly 21 tons. They were the biggest out there in terms of diet. They mostly ate big sea animals like sharks, swordfish, lungfish, and crocodiles. Since it's literally called the Spinosaurus, obviously I have to talk about their spines, like come on. Their neural spines were more than 5 feet long, which let them move in the water very easily, sort of like a sail. Now their dorsal fin was mostly dense bone and it was used to absorb heat, store fat, and regulate body temperature, kind of like a camel. Like what is this dinosaur? It's a camel-fish hybrid, but bigger than a T-Rex that could kill you and your whole family in a second, so it's like, I'm getting a lot of mixed signals right now. I don't know what to think. At number 8, we have the Andrewsarchus. The name of this one is just so funny. Like Andrewsarchus, like it sounds like the final boss of those frat boys that will sue you. And now you must fight Andrewsarchus of Delta Upsilon chapter boss. Anyway, now that I'm done on this creature, let's actually speak facts. This creature existed around 45 to 36 million years ago in what is now present day Inner Mongolia. They honestly looked like very ugly wolf-hyena hybrids, except just a lot bigger. Their skulls were massive and had snouts attached that basically consisted of 60% of their entire face. Like, its face alone was 32.8 inches long. That's a big face. Based on the skull alone, it was declared the largest meat-eating land mammal to ever exist. They weighed anywhere from 800 to 1,000 kgs and were just huge, savage dogs. Since we've never found a complete skeleton of one, it's hard to tell what the rest of their bodies would look like, but what we do know is that we're at the top of the food chain right now, and if they were around, that's our #1 spot just gone. And we don't need that. Filling our #7 slot is the Dinosaur, which literally translates to terrible crocodile in Greek. Now, crocodiles are already scary enough, but just imagine the biggest crocodile you can think of. Yeah, the Dinosaur was bigger than that too. These creatures roamed the earth 82 to 73 million years ago and used to live on both sides of the western interior seaway, which was this inland sea that used to divide North America but now obviously doesn't. Despite being named terrible crocodile, they were actually more closely related to alligators. Who the f knows the difference between them anyway? When I was young, I actually thought crocodiles were the male versions and alligators were the female versions of the species, and I don't know any better now. They grew up to 40 feet long and weighed about 10 tons. If you can see this picture right here, oh dear god. Now, this is a comparison of a Dinosaur skull and a regular alligator skull. Does that give you more of an idea of how huge I'm talking when I say this thing was huge? Like, they're not playing around. I feel like my whole body could fit in that mouth. Anyway, in terms of diet, they mostly ate other large dinosaurs, smaller dinosaurs, large aquatic dinosaurs, and turtles. Have you seen the jaw? It could eat my whole family if it wanted to. Nope. Nah, B. We're not getting you back. Bye-bye. Stay extinct? No. Now at #6 is the Dunkleosteus. Now off the bat, this one doesn't look scary, but believe me, it is. It lived on Earth around 358 to 382 million years ago and was actually an aquatic creature. The largest fossil ever found was nearly 20 feet long and weighed about a ton. Looks wise, they were very interesting. They had armored bodies, and instead of teeth, they had two sharp bony plates that made it look like it had a beak. And the face of it really reminds me of a Pokemon that I can't remember the name of. Please tell me if you know it down below. And I know having teeth sounds scarier, but don't be mistaken, the Dunkleosteus could open and clamp its jaw closed in as little as 50 milliseconds, and their bite force was 612 kgs at the tip and 755 kgs at the edge. Their beak was essentially designed to break into the same kind of armor that covered their own bodies, and that means they were either cannibalistic or they fought each other for territory. Either way, we never trust a hoe that eats its own. Never ever. No. If you betray your own, what are we gonna do with you? In terms of diet, they ate anything they encountered in the water, to be honest, and the other fish would have just seen it coming and the dude's beak would have already opened and closed and just KO. Before you even know what's going on, you're done. Spitting your head off. Unlucky. Too slow. You snooze, you lose.
#5, we have the Spinosaurus. This is the main dino from Jurassic Park 3. I always thought this was a really cool one when I was a kid. These are often called the spine lizard. It was a colossal dinosaur that existed around 112 to 93 million years ago. These spines on its back could reach up to 7 feet in height. The dino itself was around 49 to 59 feet long and weighed in at 7 to 20 tons. Spinosaurus had an elongated snout filled with conical teeth suitable for catching slippery prey like fish. At first we thought it to be primarily a land-dwelling dinosaur, but more recent findings suggest that it was more adapted to a semi-aquatic or even fully aquatic lifestyle. It had large clawed limbs specifically adapted for swimming. Next we have the Gigantoraptor. These things really creep me out. Imagine a turkey, like ostrich type thing, but the size of a house. It was about 16 feet long and stood around 11 feet tall, making it one of the largest feathered dinosaurs ever discovered. What makes Gigantoraptor truly interesting is its unusual combination of features. It had a beak like a bird, which hints at a diet of plants and small animals, but it couldn't fly. Scientists believe it might have used its large size as a defense mechanism against predators instead. Gigantoraptor was discovered in Mongolia, adding to the ever-expanding list of fascinating dinosaurs found in that region. When scientists unearthed its fossils, they were baffled and pretty excited all at once. It was massive, but had bird-like traits, which challenged what researchers thought they knew about dinosaurs' evolution at the time. Number 3, the Mammoth. So this colossal predator prowled ancient landscapes of South America around 100 million years ago. Mammoth was a member of the theropod family, closely related to the famous T-Rex. It could reach lengths of up to 33 feet. One of the most intriguing things about the Mammoth, though, and what set it apart from the T-Rex, was its social behavior. Fossil evidence suggests that these dinosaurs might have hunted in packs. So imagine a gang of these massive predators working together, kind of like velociraptors would. This pack hunting strategy allowed them to target even the most enormous titanosaurs that roamed the region. Mammoth was discovered in 2006 when its fossils were found in Argentina. And at number 2, we have the Megaraptor. These were actually closer to the T-Rex than they were the raptor, actually, but they were much faster and more dexterous than the T-Rex. They also had the use of their hands, which would have made them a terrifying threat. The Megaraptor was a member also of the theropod family, known for its sharp claws, carnivorous habits. These guys had enormous sickle-shaped claws, not on their feet like other raptors, but on their hands, which could reach lengths of nearly 14 inches. These claws were its primary weapon for hunting, used to slash through the hides of prey with very deadly precision. The name Megaraptor actually translates to giant thief. When this thing was first discovered, it was misidentified because of the mismatched discovery of claws and other bones. It was thought to be closer related to the Velociraptor family, but it was later discovered the claws belonged to a different, larger dinosaur, leading to the creation of the genus Megaraptor. Its fossils have been dug out throughout South America. Its habitat would have been a mix of forests and then open plains, and it probably preyed on smaller dinosaurs and other creatures using those claws. And finally, we have Carnotaurus, the meat-eating bull. Just look at this monster. Incredibly intimidating, but relatively compact compared to some of its larger dinosaur relatives. It's of course known for the pair of horns above its eyes, giving it a bull-like appearance. Also kind of demonic to me. These horns, coupled with the deep skull and powerful jaw muscles, likely means that Carnotaurus didn't just take out weaker species, but probably fought amongst themselves too, using their headgear to establish dominance over one another and attract mates. They had a streamlined body, meaning they were probably fast and agile. Then you got those hilariously stubby arms. Definitely detracts from the fear factor a bit, but it compensated with those big, juicy legs in the back. Its fossils have been primarily found in South America, specifically in Argentina.